signed John Brockington. So ever since then, John signs John Brockington. He tries to sign it fairly legible too, you know, a good signature.
You know, that's an interesting story because, Jim, you remember when Marv Fleming told us about when he came in to Green Bay and he was signing an autograph for a fan. He did a really lousy job. He just scribbled. And he said Niski stopped him and said, when you sign it to where they can read it.
That's right.
And from then on, he signed his name right.
Yeah, Ray did that. Scott brought that up to me. You know, because he was giving me, you know, I have a fairly short name to sign. And
he was signing an autograph for a fan. He did a really lousy job. He just scribbled. And he said Niski stopped him and said, when you sign it to where they can read it.
That's right.
And from then on, he signed his name right.
Yeah, Ray did that. Scott brought that up to me.
All right, I'm working on things, guys. We're getting real close here.
What time is it? I don't even know what time it is.
It is 5 minutes to 7.
Come here. Come here. All right, come on. Gramps is busy. Come on.
What kind of dog is that, Don?
Pardon me?
What kind of dog?
Oh, I don't have that. That's my granddaughter.
Oh, I thought you had a dog right there.
My granddaughter snuck in. Ryan.
Oh. Very good. How many grandkids you got?
We have 10.
Wow.
10 grandkids.
Wow.
22 to 2 months, right? Yep. 22.
Yeah, I've seen the picture. I saw the picture of the youngest one, a little bitty guy.
Yeah, he's the youngest. He's here right now. Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
I'm good. I got it. I'm all set. All right. All right. Thanks. Yep. Yeah, if you're on Lombardi time, we're late.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
We got 4 minutes. I actually have it live right now on our page, and I'm starting to just funnel it through to all of our groups here. So give me just a couple more minutes to get a sneak peek as we're setting it up here. Been busy today, Doug?
Yeah, I have. It's been a pretty busy week, actually. I'm glad when it's over.
Normally, Doug will bug me 20 times a day, and I'll bug him 20 times a day. And today, this is the first time we've talked.
Yeah, I've been on the go all day today.
But doesn't Bill's down in Tucson, right?
Green Valley. Yeah, he's in the Green Valley area, which is close to Tucson. Then he goes back up to Illinois in the summertime. He gets out of here when it gets hot.
Yeah.
Because it's about 110 here right now.
You know, when I lived, you know, it'd be 110, 114, 115. What got me, Doug, was at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30, it's 101, 99. That's what killed me. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And there's so much concrete here now that, you know, it'll be 1 o'clock in the morning. It'll still be 101, you know, so it just never cools down in the summer. The winters are great, though. The winters are awesome down here.
It's heaven down there. I know.
Yeah.
We looked at a house out there in the late 80s. We looked at like July. And showing me this home with fireplaces in them. I'm going, what?
I know.
But come November, December, you know, you get that fireplace going.
Yep.
It gets cold that summer.
Yep. The desert gets cold at night in the winter, for sure. Yep.
Almost ready. I was telling Don when we first we got started here that I always get nervous, man. Somebody like Don Horn, you get nervous speaking to, you know. I got to know Marv Fleming pretty well, and I consider Chris Jackie a very good friend, and I could just talk to them anytime. But Don Horn, man, you got me nervous.
You shouldn't feel that way.
These Lombardi guys make me nervous too, man.
Exactly.
When I met Jerry Kramer last year, he made me nervous.
Jerry?
Yeah, he
I talk to Jerry fairly often. Yeah.
You talk to him pretty often?
Do. Marv every now and then.
I helped Marv in Players Congress. You probably heard of Players Congress. I built their website for them.
Oh, did you really? Okay.
Yeah. I know Bob Grant and all those guys really well.
Good.
Hey, Ken Bowman's in Tucson too, isn't he, Don?
You know, he's an attorney, and he's kind of like a retired judge.
Judge or something.
You know, he works. Last time I talked to him was like the last fall. He works 1 or 2 days a week, something like that, or whatever. He's having a good time.
But he's in Arizona. He's in Arizona, right?
Actually, he and Jim Weatherwax and I we saw each other last year at Forrest Gregg's funeral here in Colorado Springs. You know, they a lot of the Packers when he coached the Packers, and then a lot of the Cincinnati Bengals came to it. But as far as his teammates, there was only myself, Kenny Bowman, and Jim Weatherwax made it his funeral.
Did Forrest live in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, he lived there for years.
He did. Did he? I didn't know that.
Willie Davis had a place there too, and they felt
really.
When they were in the Army, Fort Carson, Colorado.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
So Willie had a place here for years. Willie Davis.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Willie, he ended up in California, didn't he, Don?
Yeah, Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills, yeah.
Willie too.
Everybody loves California. California or Arizona?
Yeah.
All right. I'm all set up, guys. You guys ready to rock and roll this?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Don, I'm very excited to have you part of our group. I know that you've been part of our group for quite some time. We Bleed Green and Gold. Your son is in it. We have many people that are very fond of you. Chad Orvit, we were just talking about him. Bill Z, there's many people that just admire you. And we figured it was about time we get you to go live with us in the group because you were part of the great Lombardi Air players out there. And so welcome to our group.
You're kind, and I'm honored to be talking to the big queso. Right?
That's what they call me. That's what they call me.
But I'm glad to be here tonight, and I love talking about. I spent 4 years in Green Bay. Those were the 4 best years of my professional career, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Being part of that Lombardi era of the Packers for a while, catching that great team, that team of the '60s. With Vince Lombardi and Bart Starr and the championships that we had up there, and being just a part of that, of the tail end of that era, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Awesome. Well, I want to share a little information. I told you earlier, if I say anything wrong, please correct me. All right, because my stats are not always right. But you were first round selection in the 1967, at that time, it was called the NFL AFL draft, not the NFL draft, if I'm correct. You were 25th overall, taken by, at that time, the Super Bowl champions, the Green Bay Packers of 1967. Now, an interesting fact, and please correct me if this is right, that Super Bowl you went to, but you went to it as a spectator at the Coliseum, and then the following year you went there as a player.
I grew up in Southern California, in Los Angeles, and I'd go to all the Ram games as a kid. I was a big Ram fan. I'd spend 50 cents, maybe $1, to get in to see the Rams. And my Bobby Beathard, if you know who that name is, Bobby Beathard was you know, Bobby started, I first met Bobby when I was a junior in high school. Bobby started coaching me in high school. So I knew Bobby a little bit, and we kind of stayed in touch. I'm a senior at San Diego State. And Bobby calls me up. This was like in January, early January of '67. And he says, hey, Don, you know, I'm a part-time scout now for the Chiefs. His brother, Pete, was backing up Lenny Dawson with the Kansas City Chiefs. He says, yeah, because Bobby always wanted to get in the NFL. So he got his foot in the door. And he says, yeah, he says, I got 2 tickets to the Super Bowl or the championship game next week in the Coliseum, you know, Kansas City and Green Bay. And he says, you want them? And I said, sure. He says, they're $12 a piece. And I went, what? You're out of your mind, you know. And so, I bought 2 tickets. My buddy and I went to the game. I'm sitting in the stands, the same seat I spent $1 in, you know, the previous 10 years. And actually pulling for the Packers. I don't know why. I've always liked the Packers. And great game. When Max made that catch in the end zone, you know, bobbed the ball. I mean, it was right in front of me. And then 2 months later, I get a call from Vince Lombardi, and tells me they're considering making me their next selection, and want to know if I'd have any reservations about being a Green Bay Packer. So,
and you were passed up on by what, 2 or 3 teams beforehand?
I was scouted heavily by the 49ers, the Rams, the Raiders, Chargers, the Lions, the Giants, and I think a couple other teams. They all said that if I was available in the first round, they were going to pick me. And back in those days, it's totally different now, you know, compared to what was back then. And they have consortiums. They have, you know, a group where these scouts would share their information to a group of teams. 4 or 5 teams would belong to one group of scouts, and 4 or 5 other teams would belong to another group of scouting, combine, that type of thing. And the Giants are in the same, and the Lions are in the same kind of combine, I think, that the Packers were in. And all these teams, I'm in a small little room listening to the radio, because they said, all these teams said, the day of the draft, give me a phone number or 2 where you could be reached if we want to call you. So I'm in a little room actually at San Diego State in the public relations director's office. And he says, well, I'm listening to the radio, and all these teams that say they're going to draft me, they don't. None of these teams that I've talked to, they all pass me. And I'm going, you know, maybe you can't always believe what they tell you. And about that time, the phone rang. And I pick up the phone, and I hear this, I forget the lady's name. She says, is this Don Horn? I said, yes, ma'am. She says, please hold for Coach Lombardi. And I never talked to him. And so I almost put the phone down. I thought somebody's really pulling my chain, and when that voice came on, you know, Jim and Doug, when that voice came on, Donald, you know, and he heard that voice, you know, and he says, this is Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers. He says, we're considering making you our next draft choice. Just Kansas City's picking now. You have the next choice. Do you have any reservations? And I said, no, sir. I'll call you back. 20 minutes later, welcome to the Green Bay Packers. When can you get back here? You know, I got back as soon as I could. I mean, you know.
Wow.
You actually showed up about a month early, didn't you?
Yeah, a month or 6 weeks early. Yeah, I mean, I was all fired up, ready. I was out there working out with the guys and stuff and whatever, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I living at the Downtowner Hotel where, you know, the famous Paul Hornung lived and stuff and whatever. There wasn't a whole lot back in Green Bay back in the mid 60s. It wasn't a whole lot there, but it was sure a great experience. And a lot of people say the worst thing, you know, after the fact, a lot of the football gurus, they say, because I played with Don Coryell, wide open, Air Coryell, pass. And I always thought offensive linemen loved the pass block until they went to Green Bay. But a lot of people say the worst thing that happened to my career, they think, was being drafted by Green Bay in that very, you know, going up to the frozen tundra, Playing in that very predictable running type of a game, little play action pass every now and then, don't throw the ball that much and that type of thing. It was a totally different experience for me. It took me a while to adjust to it, but like I said earlier, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world.
Awesome.
Of my life, experience it. I tell you, that group of Green Bay Packers, from the coaching staff to the players, even the wives, the community, there's something unique about it. And the character. Somebody asked me the other day, what's the main thing, what do you take back from ever being a Green Bay Packer? What's the one thing that you recall about being a Green Bay Packer? And I say, I guess it's character. The essence of being a Green Bay Packer, at least in the Lombardi era, was, you got to be a person of good character. So that's the way they were.
That's awesome. Now you went to, I believe, Washington State University first. Then you went on to Harvard Junior College in LA. Then you went on to San Diego State College. You played with the Packers 67 through 70.
67 through 70, yeah.
Denver 71, 72. I always have to mention the evil teams like Denver, the Browns, Chargers. I have to. It's what we do as Packer fans. But then you went on with the Browns in 73, the Chargers 74, and then the Portland Thunder, which was the World Football League at the time in 1975.
Right, yeah.
You were in the U.S. Army in 1968 and didn't get to play, and help me with the story, didn't get to play much that year because of the fact that you were still part of the Army.
I was in the reserves. I got in, this is back in the NOM era. So when you got out of college, you went from 2S, it was deferred, to 1A. So I got back to Green Bay and I was able to get into a reserve unit like pretty much everybody did back in the 60s. I got in a reserve unit in Milwaukee, and they were supposedly call me for my basic and AIT, my training, my 4 or 5 month training in the off season, because football at that time was considered a seasonal sport, a seasonal vocation, similar to a farmer. A farmer has to work the field certain times of the year, and then he's got downtime where he can do other things. And so anyway, instead of calling me to active duty from February to like June or July, they waited till July and called me to active duty until the early part of December. So I went to training camp for a couple of weeks, had to report to Fort Campbell, went down there, ended up Fort Sill. I got out in early December of 68, missed the whole season, went up to Green Bay, practiced with the team for 1 week, a little bit. Stood on the field at my civvies next to the last game when we almost beat the Colts in Lambeau. I think we lost 16 to 12 or 16 to 9 or 7 or whatever. And I tell you, that Baltimore Colt team of that year, that was the year I think they went on to the Super Bowl and lost to Joe Willie. That was one of the finest football teams I ever saw. So I'm on the sidelines, and then the next week I practiced a little bit, the last game of the season. And then we play the Bears in Chicago. I had a reserve meeting in Milwaukee that Saturday night. And so Lombardi gave me permission to go I had to go to the reserve meeting. And I got out at so I had to drive to Chicago. I got in about 2:30 in the morning, woke up my roommate that particular night, Ron Kostelnik, another great guy, just a great guy, God rest his soul. And got up the next morning, and Lombardi at that time was the GM. He wasn't the coach, but he was still kind of pulling all the strings. So I ran into Coach Lombardi on the way to breakfast, and he said, Donald, he always called me Donald. He said, Donald, what time did you get in last night? I told him 2 o'clock, not 2:30. And then he made his comment like, well, did you bring your jersey or your uniform? And I said, no, sir. He said, well, I'm thinking about suiting you up. And I thought he was joking, he was kidding. After breakfast, we go to the meeting. He deactivates Bart. Bart's got broken ribs. He activated me as the third string quarterback. And lo and behold, big game for the Bears. If they win, they go to the playoffs. Into the first quarter, they carry Zeke off the field, and they turn to me and get in. That's when I still take Jerry Kramer today. I still give Jerry this. Jerry. I think it was Jerry's last game. I quarterbacked the last game he ever played as a Packer. I go in the game. And again, I've only been there maybe less than 2 weeks. I go in the game. Kramer looks at me and says, "What the heck what are you doing in here? And he turns, what is he doing in here?" And really, he built my confidence. So I said, but I think the first series I lost 12 yards. After that, I said, what the heck? We called our own plays back then. I started calling plays and ended up being NFL Player of the Week. I don't know how it happened, but we beat them by 1 point, knocked them out of the playoffs. Butkus cussed me out. And
you got to look at that as probably a highlight right there, as a spoiler for beating the rival, the Chicago Bears. You got to appreciate that.
My best games, seem to be, I've had some good games against the Bears in Chicago. And and I ran into Dick about 20-some years ago at a golf tournament. He didn't have much to say to me that day. Very friendly. So I still want to good. So anyway, but
that game it was 28-27, if I'm right. You ended up throwing 187 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Incredible. I think that was your highest percentage game at 142, wasn't it?
That was. I think at that particular, it was. And I was NFL Offensive Player of the Week. And the ironic thing about that whole thing, and I have the program here somewhere, it happened to be the 100th meeting of the Packers and the Bears. The oldest rivalry.
Wow.
And I got the program. I was Player of the Week, got the game ball. It's back here somewhere. And my name's not even in the program.
Oh, gee.
Because I was in the Army all year. So
that's awesome. I want to talk about one other game, and I'm going to let Doug jump in with a bunch of questions. And if we have time, I know other people are asking questions in the group right now. But there was a game that I believe you played the Cardinals. You beat them 45-28. You threw for 410 yards. You were the first Packer ever to throw over 400 yards. You threw 5 touchdown passes at that time. And how was that game to be able to be the first Packer ever to throw 400 yards, 5 touchdowns? Incredible game. Tell us a little bit about that if you can.
Sorry. Yeah, that was a great afternoon. We had a great game plan. Bob Stunker was our obviously coordinator. That's one of those days, there's days when everything clicks on all cylinders. There's other days where you leak oil all over the field. That happened to be one of the days where everything was clicking perfectly for us, calling the right plays at the right time. We had a great game plan, and everything just seemed to be clicking on all cylinders. And the ironic thing about that happened to be Willie Davis Day. That was Willie Davis Day. That was his last day as a Packer. And I always give Lynn Dickey static about this too, because Lynn and I are good friends. And I threw 410 yards, 5 touchdowns, and they took me out at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I said, if they'd left me in another quarter, Lynn, I'd have broken, you wouldn't have broken my record, whatever. So, but I came off the field, and I remember Willie came up to me, kind of grabbed me and hugged me, and he says, "You stole my thunder today, Don. You stole my thunder." It was Willie Davis Day. That was one of those days where everything was clicking on all cylinders. It was great. It was a good day for us.
That's awesome. I think Lynn Dickey, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers are the only other Packer quarterbacks currently at this time that have thrown over 400 yards in a game. I could be wrong, but I believe that's.
Matt Flynn did it too.
Who did?
Well, I don't know about 400 yards. He threw. Matt Flynn, didn't he throw? He threw 5 touchdowns, I think.
5 touchdowns. I'm not sure if it was over 400 yards. I'll check into that.
I'll tell you, throwing 400 yards back then was that was kind of a feat, because especially with our the type of offense we had, we didn't throw the ball that much, and I tell people for this, for a period of like 7 or 8 years, from like 69 to mid 70s or 75, 76, there's a trivia question. Name the last 2 quarterbacks to throw over 400 yards in an NFL game. One was Don Horn, the other was Joe Namath. Mm. The game's changed so much now where, you know, a 300-yard game back then was like a 400-yard game today, I guess. I mean, right. You know, people are throwing 400 yards all the time. Of course, it's a different game today. Totally different.
I want to, and I apologize, I want to share one more story. We have a guy by the name of, and I believe you know him well as well. He wrote an article about you. His name is Bob Fox. He's always posting in both of our groups. I appreciate him doing that wholeheartedly, but during a conversation 2008, he wrote that you had talked about in that first round draft pick, you had a contract of $15,000 in 1967. And you stated that was over $1,000 a month. That's something today's players wouldn't even cross the street for. Vince Lombardi was very big on that money aspect of it, that and I believe you said that Vince would have been very upset if people were there just for the money. Help me understand that scenario. What's your thoughts on that then of the passion compared today, like Dak Prescott that wants $1 billion to play football?
It's a different game today. It's a different makeup of the players today, society. You know, you can argue about that till the cows come home about what problems we are having in the country today, but society, the way people look at things. But I know when I'm a rookie now, in 1967, we pull the team together and we have our final team after all the cuts. And Biss gets up in front of the team and he says, "Welcome to Green Bay Packers." And he says, "There's 3 reasons why you're in this game, why you're in this room. 3 reasons." He says, "Number 1, it's the little boy in you. And that is, you love this game of football so much. You love it since you're a little boy. You want to play this game as long as you can. You just love this game. It's a little boy in you. You have that heart. You just love the game so much. Number 2, you not only love the game so much, you have the personal pride. You want to be the best. You know, you're going to give it everything, your all. You're going to sacrifice because you not only you love the game so much, you want to be the best at it. You want to be the best you possibly can. You're not going to quit. You're going to just. And the 3rd reason you're in here, and it's a sorry reason. It's a sorry reason. Unfortunately, there's probably 2 or 3 in here that are in that for a reason only. He says that's for the money only. And he says at 15, because at that time the Super Bowl paid $15,000. He says $15,000 isn't enough to motivate you. I don't know what the heck is. But you know, guys just playing for the money. You know, I mean, there are always 2 or 3 guys, but he didn't want those guys around. You know, if he knew who they actually were. But anyway, but today, what do you do? I mean, I don't know. Don't even get me started on today's players and the money they're making today. I'll tell you. I remember talking to Jack Kemp 30 years ago about this. Jack and I were good friends. And we're at a convention and we're talking and he says, you know, he's telling what he made. And he said, "Hey, Don, what did you make the first year?" And I said, $15,000. He couldn't believe it. And then we started comparing notes. And this is 30 years ago. And he says, "Can you believe the amount of money they're making now?" And he says, "Take my son, what he told me," he said, this is 30 years ago. He says, $15,000. They get that paid, or they get paid $15,000 tying their shoelaces before a game now. That's what they get paid for that. But he says, "Take my son Jeff." His son Jeff was a quarterback. He was a taxi squad quarterback. We call them taxi squad guys back then. And he was the 3rd string quarterback for the Seahawks, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s. And he'd been with the Rams a little bit earlier. He says, "Take my son Jeff." He said, he's a taxi squad quarterback. He doesn't even suit up for the games. And they're paying him $380,000. $380,000. Wow. And that was 30 years ago. So, you can't even fathom it now.
Wow. It gets, for me, I don't know about you, Doug. I sit here and I listen to you and I get goosebumps. I get goosebumps listening to you tell stories, you know, about the Lombardi days. And that's why I started this group 7 years ago. And I one of the main reasons, and I started it with my daughter, one of the main reasons why I started it, Don, was I didn't want the kids of today to only look at our quarterbacks of today. I wanted, you know, the legacy of the Green Bay Packers and how it started with you, with Bart Starr, and we could go on and on and on. But I wanted people to understand what built the tradition and the legacy that we have of the Green Bay Packers today. So it gives me goosebumps.
It's a tradition, and you know, like I said, I'm so fortunate to experience the latter part of that great era of the '60s with the tradition, the things we did not only on the field together, but we did things off the field together. We were a family off the field, and Vince encouraged that. He wanted families to get together. You know, guys that were single, bring a girlfriend, but get together with the other people, you know, and we'd socialize. I remember, we'd go eat every Tuesday. We'd go have, after practice, we'd go have wings, you know, with Robbie and everybody at this one little joint right down the street from Lambeau. And it was just something to really look forward to. You spend a lot of time, the camaraderie you build, you know, the feeling off the field that you got. And then, you know, that was Lombardi's philosophy, that spend a lot of time off the field, you're going to look each other in the eye in a 2-minute drill and look each other in the eye. You got to go 80 yards to win a game, and you're going to pull it together for your teammates, because special feeling, the camaraderie that I don't know if it really exists on every team, you know, every team today that it did back then.
Just so you know, as well, Don, you are absolutely correct. Mike Warchek of Card and Coin, I'm sure you've heard of Card and Coin, corrected me. Matt Flynn did it as well, over 400. I think he said it was 480 yards. So I apologize for that.
Yeah.
But
Lynn Dickey did his. He did it 417. His was an overtime game, 5 quarters. And I remember years ago when I had the record for years, and then when Lynn beat it, the sports writer called me up one day and he says, "Hey Don, what do you think about Lynn beating your record?" And I said, "Well, I know Lynn. Tell him congratulations, but make sure you put an asterisk by it, because like Roger Maris, when he built, you know, the home run, more games and stuff, because I knew it was an overtime game in the 5th quarter, you know." And he says, "Okay, I'll tell him that." About 4 days later, he calls me back and he says, "I told Lynn what you said, and Lynn told me to tell you to go pound sand, because he said he had an 89-yard touchdown pass called back, or he had over 500 yards, 6 touchdowns, or 5 or whatever. I don't know." We're very good friends.
That's awesome. Maybe you could help us. We've been wanting to get Lynn to go live in our group one of these days. Maybe you could put in a good word for us.
I will. Yeah.
Right. Doug, I know you got a bunch of questions there. Why don't you start shooting what some of these people in our group want to know from Don, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. Some of these questions you may have already answered, Don, as you spoke, so I apologize, but I'll ask them again. Anyway, this one comes from group member James Randolph. He asked, what is the one thing that Vince Lombardi said to you that has stuck with you in your everyday life?
I would say, it's the common. I guess it's a combination of never give up. Make that second effort. That'll say he had. And you're better than you think you are. You're better than you think you are. You think, I've given it all. That's all I can do. I can't give you any more. And he would he'd find some way to get you to give you more. And you go, I didn't.
He'd get more out of you.
More out of you. And you'd think you had it in you. So he'd always make you, work harder. And just, he was something. He was, He was some. I tell people you haven't really lived. I mean, unless you've been in the Army and got your fanny chewed out by a drill sergeant, or else, you know. But this would just address you. He had an uncanny knack of. He was a great motivator. He knew what to motivate you individually, Doug, or Big Queso, or he knew how to motivate the whole team. He just knew when to do it at the right time. He knew when everybody needed it, or if you overly motivated, you know, he would bring you down a little bit. He'd take you in private. Right. He took me private many times. Put his arm around me, took me over the corner. Don, I've seen the best, and you can be better than any of them. And just, you know, and just kind of build your, get you all. Right. You go to practice, you go back in the practice field, and 10 minutes later, yeah, what the heck, you know, so help me if I see that San Diego Surfer Shuffle one more time, you'll be the next bus back to the beach. And I'm going, wait a minute. But he had the act of building you up in private and then tearing you down in front of your peers.
Yeah.
And he treated everybody that way.
You aren't the first one that I've heard say that. Jerry Kramer says the same type of thing. So all you guys seem to be on the same page with Vince. This question comes from group member Tim Oliveras, and I think you may have hit on this, but he asks, "What is your most favorite game of your career?"
Oh boy, you know, I'd probably say the one that sticks out the most is the one I got out of the Army in, and it's a game I wasn't supposed to play. In that game, and just kind of everything just kind of went clicking on all cylinders. And what made it special too afterwards, it was December 15th, 1968. And I remember that date because it was my dad's birthday. My dad's on the West Coast watching the Rams, and then it was a big game for the Bears. If they win, they go to the playoffs. And so he's watching, and then he said for some reason they pulled away from the Ram game. And he got to watch the last probably 10 minutes of the Bear-Packer game and watch me play. And he hadn't seen me.
That's neat.
And it was his birthday, so that was kind of special too. So, and then, you know, Vince,
that's really
came up and actually hugged me after that game. Yeah, Vince did. So, yeah. Well, I think that's the only time he did it.
This next question comes from she's a very special member of our group. She's a little girl. Her name is Jeanette, and she asked, "Did you get any injuries, and did you have fun playing football?"
Oh, I great fun playing football. That's the little boy in me, and I got my share of injuries. You know, bad knees, bad hips, bad shoulders, broken ribs, bad ankles.
Beat up.
You know, somebody said, "Would you do it again?" Yeah. You know, would you change anything? Well, there's 4 or 5 passes I'd like to have back. You know,
sure.
4 or 5 passes I got through, I'd like to have those back. Outside of that, I wouldn't change anything.
Next question, Don, is from group member Kathy Conway. She asks, "What is your most memorable play as a Packer?"
You know, my most memorable play, off the top of my head, we, 1970, I think it is, we're playing the Falcons in Lambeau, and Bart starts the game. He's having a terrible day. And Norm Van Brocklin is the head coach of the Falcons. He was my hero and my idol growing up in LA when he was quarterbacking with the Rams. Always a big fan. I always loved, he's my hero. So they throw me in towards the end of the third quarter. They took Bart out, put me in. I go 2 for 10. I couldn't hit it. As Lombardi says, you couldn't hit a bull in the ass with a handful of peas, you know. And I wouldn't do any better than Bart. And we had third down, about a minute and I don't know, maybe 2 minutes to go in the game, if that. In a little under 2 minutes, or maybe 2 minutes and 10 seconds. We had third down, I think, on our own 11-yard line. And Carroll Dale comes into me and he tells me, he says, throw that 6 pass. And everybody goes down, turns in about 15 to 16 yards. They turn in. And he says, look at me all the way. When I turn, you pump, pull it down, and then throw it as far as you can. I said, okay. And that's when Forrest Gregg had to block. He had to block Claude Humphrey. Claude Humphrey, I think his name was. Yeah. He was one heck of a defensive end. And Forrest made 2 great blocks. And just as I threw it, Forrest cut him and, whatever. Anyway, long story short, I threw an 89-yard touchdown pass, which happened to be the longest touchdown pass ever thrown by any quarterback in Lambeau. That record held years until about 207, 208 when Brett threw a 25-yard pass to Driver in that championship game against the Giants, and he took it 90 yards. He beat it by 1 yard. But
beat you by 1 yard.
So something fell over there. But anyway, so we won the game, and I threw it as high as I did far. So after the game, we won the game. I go up to see Coach Van Brockman. I want to meet him. I never met him before. And he's screaming at me. He's screaming at his team. They lost the game, whatever. And he looks at me and he says, what the hell? What are you looking at? Whatever. He says, Horn, you lucky so-and-so throwing that damn silo and throwing, whatever. And he called it a silo. And I said, Coach, I said, you shouldn't talk to me that way. Why not? You lucky so-and-so. He was, 4 little words and stuff. You lucky. And I said, because you're my idol. And he looked at me and I was serious. He thought I was jerking his chain. So he got really mad at me then. So I never really met him after that. But that one play when Carroll, to this day, when I see Carroll, we always talk about that play, and
that's amazing.
That's the one play that I think I really remember the most.
Got a few more here for you, Don, if you don't mind. This one comes from Kathy as well. She says, who is your favorite teammate or best buddy?
Oh gosh, are you kidding? That team right there. Yeah. Oh, there were so many great guys on that team. That's hard. There's so many of them that, Willie Wood, Nitschke. So many.
You
referred to a hard question.
What's that?
You referred to one of them earlier by the name Roddy.
Well, Robbie?
Robbie. Sorry about that. Robbie. I went live with him once, but a lot of people don't realize you call him Robbie.
Robbie. We call him Robbie. They robbed Robbie. We call him Robbie. And we called Forrest Trees. His nickname was Trees. Fuzzy, I remember playing, I played my rookie year, I played with Max McGee and Fuzzy. And I remember one game, the first pass I ever threw in a game, Max dropped. Went right through his hands. So Vince is giving him static about it the following week. We're watching game film, and he's watching the game film, and he sees this ball going right through Max's hands. We won the game. That's why we're playing, and he said, Max, he says, take that, Max. I threw that ball right. I threw your hands. I told you before the season, you're too old. You should have quit before the season. Look at that. That Horn put that ball right through your hands. You couldn't catch it. Max hesitates and says, want to know the truth? It caught me off guard. He said, what do you mean it caught you off guard? He says, well, that's the best ball I've seen thrown around here in 4.5 years.
That's good.
The whole team just cracked up. And they just did. Max said his one-liners, So, you got Bart Kowski there to say that's the best ball you've seen thrown around 4.5 years. So really great.
Right. I watched a documentary that had Max McGee in it, and he seemed like quite the prankster.
Oh, he was something.
Yeah.
I love that. And Fuzzy too. Fuzzy, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
First game I played in, it was the same game, and we're in there. Fuzzy, Fuzzy was playing behind Gillingham at that time. So, we get in the game, we got 4 or 5 minutes to go. And, I got Max in there. I got the old timers and some of the rookies and stuff. And, the Cowboys, back in the 60s and 70s, when the Cowboys obviously line, they get ready set, they'd stand up. The offensive line would stand up, look around, and they'd sit down. Vince didn't like that. Well, I'm a rookie and stuff, and we're calling our own plays. So Fuzzy said, I'm going to help you out, kid. I'm going to help you out, kid. I said, what do you need? He says, listen to me. So I go ready, set. The team gets down in the 3-point stance. Fuzzy stands up. He's the left guard. Fuzzy stands up, looks around. He says, get out of it, get out of it, get out of it, And then he told me to audible, so I audible. Or he'd say, let it go. It's good. It's good. That type thing. So whatever I had called was, Vince is on the sideline. Just trying to help the kid out.
He was your watchdog. Yeah. Pretty great.
Fuzzy or Max to get away with that stuff. Those are the only two guys that did it on that team. They're great guys.
I got one here from Jennifer of the group. She asks, what's your fondest memory of being a Packer?
My fondest memory of being a Packer, I guess is just being a Packer, being part of that.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about that, the character and the makeup of that team in general, the class of players, and just being a part of that ambiance, that era of Lombardiisms, and just being a part of that. I guess that's, it's special. It's something special. And,
sure.
Someone said the other day, it was not, as far as the Lombardi Packers go, it's probably only somewhere in the low 20s of guys that are still alive that played for Vince with Green Bay. There's not that many guys left around that played for Vince.
No, unfortunately, there's not. And I want to ask you my own question, if you don't mind. So obviously you were with one of the greatest teams of that era, and you were at one of the most iconic games in NFL history with the Ice Bowl. Did you ever realize how special it was at the time?
Not really. Not really.
Did you ever think in 2020 that, you guys would still be looked at as
furthest thing from our mind back then or whatever. We just wanted, that game was so doggone cold. We were so glad that you just get off that field, and we won the game. Bart and that team did in that last 4 or 5 minutes of that game, going 60-some yards. Because previous to that, they had negative yardage for I don't know how many plays before that.
Yeah.
And to pull that together. And to this day, you talk about the greatest call I've ever seen made by Bart, or pretty much anybody, was when he called the give play. And Chuck Racine almost scored on it. I think he went out of bounds on the 2-yard line or 1.5-yard line. But he called the give play, because we called our own plays back then. No one sent him in.
Mm-hmm.
He called the play at the right time, and caught Lilly going the wrong way, and Chuck almost scored to that play. Gutsy call, because that could have been a fumble just as easy as, if Lilly hadn't chased. Right. But when he called that play, I couldn't believe that guy was. Bart was so much. Art Starr, and I met Peyton Manning, but those two are the only two I think that have the work ethic of, the two finest work ethics I've ever seen in any quarterback that I've seen play the last 40, 50 years.
I have to jump in and ask, you talk about Bart Starr there. Obviously, it was probably such an honor to work side by side with Bart Starr and be friends with him. Could you touch bases with us just a little bit on that relationship that you had with Bart? What kind of an individual he was?
I was in awe of Bart. And, I get to Green Bay and I'm there a few days, staying at the Downtowner motel, in town, wanting to work out with the team. and he hears that I'm in town. He calls me up and invites me to go to a banquet with him so he can introduce me to a lot of the fans in Green Bay. And he comes over. The first time I met him, he picks me up and he meets me in the lobby, and I get in this, I think he had a Lincoln Continental back then or something, get in his car. We drive over to this banquet. He's the keynote speaker. He gets up and says some nice things about me, not even knowing me. And what a class. I mean, Omega Mike Bart. Bart's, you can't say enough about him. On the field, off the field, the way he treated people, off the field, the fans, and his work ethic. Sometimes when you're young and dumb, coming out of college and young and cocky, I wish I'd have paid a little bit more attention to the work ethic that he tried to instill. I mean, I did after a while, but after a few injuries and stuff, whatever. But I can't say enough about him. Just a good guy. We had a good relationship. In fact, when I left Green Bay, I didn't really want to leave, and I had a pretty good year in '69, and a lot of the players, some of the coaches thought I should be playing a little bit more, and so I go to the coach, or I think it's Philip Egson at the time, and I said, Coach, I'd like to play a little bit more this year. And they said, well, Don, I understand, but as long as Bart's here, he's the franchise. I said, I totally understand. I totally understand. So I go talk to Bart. I said, Bart, let's go have a beer. And I said, Bart, just between us, how many more years you think you're going to play? He says, at least 5 more years. Oh my God. So whatever. So anyway, but I didn't want to leave. And then Devine came in and heard I was unhappy, and he traded me sight unseen. I come to Denver, and took my leg and my shoulder up and whatever. So I often wonder what it would have been like if I'd have stayed in Green Bay, because but then John Brockington and I are good friends today. We tell each other we're joined at the hip, because he'd have never gone to Green Bay unless they traded me to Denver. He'd have gone to the Bears and whatever, but things happen, I guess, for a reason. But what can you do?
Right. We got one more. I got one more thing to ask you, Don, and I'll quit picking your brain. So there's an ongoing, I don't know if you call it a feud or not, but there's an ongoing debate a lot of times in our group. And I got to know, are you a Favre guy or are you a Rodgers guy?
Instigator.
It's tough, isn't it?
I'm a Bart Starr guy.
You're a Bart Starr guy. Good answer. Thanks, Don, for letting me ask you this question.
I met Aaron once coming off the field, just whatever. But I met Brett. I met Brett before he broke my record. That I met him. They played in a Monday night game here, I think 2007, 2008. Monday night game, when the first play of the overtime, Brett threw a 80-yard touchdown pass, and they beat the Broncos. But I went down to see him that morning at the hotel. And I never met him, and so some of the front office people introduced me to him. And they were saying, here's Don Horn. He played behind Bart Starr. And I'm like, yeah. And then he says, and they said, by the way, Brett, Don holds the record for the longest touchdown pass ever thrown in Lambeau. And the first thing Brett said was, how far was it? It was only 89 yards. Well, I threw 199. He did, but it was down in Chicago. This is Lambeau Field records. And he says, and we're talking, and a nice guy, and he says, Don, I've been trying for, 12, 13, 14 years to break your record and all that stuff, whatever, and I'm saying, well, if anybody breaks it, I want you to break it, I want you to do it if anybody does and stuff like that. And then I'm sitting there saying, I said, Brett, you have more gray hair than I do, and but when he left, he had to go to a meeting, and he says, Don, I promise I won't break your record. Your record's safe. I won't break it. And then 2 months later, he throws the 25-yard pass to the driver, 90 yards. I was going to call him and give him some static about it, but that's when all this, he and Ted Thompson and, I'm going to retire, not retire, retired. And so everything kind of.
Yeah.
So I have more breath than I do with Aaron. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
thanks for all the questions, Don. I appreciate your time answering all those questions.
Expect memories.
Well, I have to jump in and say, because like I said, Doug is an instigator. We love Broken Collarbone, but Bart Starr, Brett Favre, they had that connection, and my opinion, Brett Favre. So I'll throw my 2 cents in just to be an instigator as well. Now, I want to talk about one more thing, because we don't want to keep you here all night, and we can, we'll talk football all night long, but we sure appreciate your time. And one of the things that Doug and I talked about was you and your family. We have the coronavirus going on right now, and everybody's struggling through that. And, we're praying for everybody to be safe and, sound and healthy. But your family is going through some struggles of its own right now with your daughter. And I have just posted in our group, and I'm going to post it several times throughout this week. Your daughter is fighting and tell me if I'm wrong, 2 types of breast cancer. Is that correct?
There's two types of breast cancer. One of them is extremely aggressive. She just had another bout of chemo today. She has another 1 or 2 more to go. Then she probably has to have a double mastectomy. And, hopefully, things will be okay. She's the mother of 5 in her, early 40s. And all this came on suddenly. And, she's struggling, and, we're trying to help her out, and doesn't have the best insurance in the world. So, and some of these chemo things are that expensive. Some of them are $21,000. Just amazing.
Well, your family has started a GoFundMe page.
Started a GoFundMe page. In fact, Ryan, my son's kind of running the whole thing for the family and stuff. And we started auctioning off some autographed, helmets and jerseys and things like that to people, and giving the proceeds to our daughter to help her offset her medical bills and stuff like that, or whatever. And it's been pretty good the last couple of months. It's been pretty good, and we've raised a few $1,000s for her, and it sure helps, and she really appreciates it and stuff like that. So anything you got, right now, Ryan's been buying these helmets, and then I've been signing them and trying to sell them and stuff like that. Now, because Rydell and these people are shut down in Chicago, we can't get any more Green Bay Packer helmets right now. The type that we want, the old 2-bar type of, that I played with. So everything's in a holding pattern as far as, certain items we're running out of, and until they open up these companies and let them produce more things that we can auction off or sell, we're kind of in a standstill.
Well, we kind of wanted to do a little thing of our own, and so we created a raffle that I just posted a link to it, that we have a company that donated some stuff. It's called Tech Bridge Consulting, that they wanted to contribute. And so we have some memorabilia that we are going to raffle off. And all of the proceeds from that, we are going to be getting over to Ryan to try to help out as well. We have a great group here, Don. I could tell you that. And these guys have a heart of green and gold. And I'm sure that they're going to rally around, and including myself, will be donating to your GoFundMe account. And hopefully these raffle tickets will sell. And we're going to let it run for 1 week, from tonight till next Thursday before I go live again. And we want these tickets to sell, and hopefully, a few lucky people will win some great stuff. And we want to get this word out to help as much as we can with your family.
I appreciate that. God bless you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the fans and friends and in your group. It's just means a lot. Means a lot.
Well, we thank you for taking time to talk to us, Don. It's been a real honor.
My pleasure. And my problem is I start talking. Sometimes I won't shut up.
That's okay.
I tell you one story, then I think about something I haven't thought about, and I go into something else or whatever. So
we appreciate
that's
it.
fine.
We might bug you in the future to come live with us again.
Anytime. I'd be more than honored. So, yeah.
And I'm going to tag you on this thread. If you get a chance, in the next couple of days, there's still people putting a bunch of questions in there. If you could go on there and answer some of their questions, we'd appreciate it. But it's been a complete honor to have you part of our group, and we sure appreciate it. And you, your family, your daughter, Ryan, everybody, you guys will be in our prayers, and just thank you again.
Appreciate it. Really do, guys.
Very much. I always ask whoever I in the live with to give me 3 simple words, and you probably know what they are. It starts with a go and ends with a go. But if you could end this for us, I would appreciate it.
Go, Pat, go.
Thank you, Don.
Awesome. Thanks, Don.
All right, guys, have a wonderful night. Go to Don's GoFundMe page. Donate if you can. We don't want to put you in a worse situation, but if you can, please go help out. Look for the link for our raffle, and one of the jerseys on there is a breast cancer jersey as well, autographed by Brett Favre. So, guys, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Don, and have a wonderful night, guys.
Thank you.
Be safe out there.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.